What does the world think, in your experience? Is it important?
It is important, but I guess it's become important primarily as a symbol of the dangerous warming of our planet. If I'm honest, most people, when they think of the Arctic these days, are thinking about what they're learning about the melting of the ice, the rising of the sea levels, and that in a way is both good and bad, because it's good that, in a way, the Arctic is such a powerful symbol of the dangers facing our planet, but it also perhaps misleads people as to what's happening in the Arctic, why the Arctic matters, what are the interests of the people in the Arctic, because it's a one-dimensional way.
So it becomes an overwhelming dimension
in a way, and
in the understanding
it sucks
of
away
the Arctic.
the oxygen from all of the other important issues, not least, the future of Arctic communities, of peoples, also of the resource issues in the Arctic, whether it's wise to explore and extract fossil fuels and minerals from this region, and as you mentioned, the strategic interests. Some of the great powers of the world, obviously the United States and Russia, both have an important stake in the Arctic. There are real questions about the degree to which cooperation can ensure the Arctic is sort of ring-fenced from some of the tensions that we see elsewhere in the world. These are all hugely important questions, but I think do get overwhelmed in the public's mind by this one central issue of climate change and the melting ice.
We've talked about Asia today, and we see a number of Asian countries have decided to join as observers to the Arctic Council, the predominant regulatory body and a cooperation between governments in the Arctic. How do you read that?
Well, I read it as being practical self-interest. I think if one looks at the future of the Arctic, one has to assume that the planet is going to continue to warm to a certain extent. That has major strategic and economic implications, not least for the seaways.
Yes.
The northern sea route is going to open up in a new way, which is very important potentially for Asian countries, including China. Again, the warming climate may make resource extraction easier.
Yes.
We know that China is constantly looking all around the world for investment opportunities, for places in which they can project China's economic interest.
But we did hear today that China didn't think that money was the key tool in the Arctic.
No,
How did you interpret that?
A little skeptically. I think it's not just about money, but it is about national self-interest. I think the Arctic is going to become, whatever way one looks at it, security, economy, environment, the Arctic is going to be increasingly important. The Chinese, as global players, as projectors of power around the world, see themselves having a role in every strategically important place on Earth, and that would include the Arctic. So they want to be here for a whole bunch of reasons.
So the final question before I let you go, Stephen, would be the following. Do you think that the US is missing the bus here?
I think when we heard from Senator Murkowski that there is what she called a complete void when it comes to current US sort of strategic commitment to and interest in the Arctic and the world needs to be worried about that. The US by default has an extraordinarily important role to play in the Arctic, and right now it seems there is an incumbent in the White House who just doesn't really care or spend time thinking about the US and its Arctic strategic role, and I think that is a problem for the US and arguably a problem for the Arctic as a whole.
As well. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for sharing
You're
those comments.
Most welcome.
We'll see you
now
later
I
on
take
today.
A rest and then we start talking
Yes,
again.
we do. Thank you.